Hello, everybody. I'm doing a little video chat, um, just as a sort of little temporary video relating to something that somebody asked. I'd asked a little while ago on Facebook if there were topics that people wanted to hear and see discussed, because I was hoping to set up something called talk to the team and get the other consultants involved in sort of sharing like a Zoom session or whatever, so we could actually discuss things that seemed to be of interest. That was the plan. I'm still hoping to do that, but in the meantime I've had quite a few issues with my own internet reliability and speed here, because I'm out in the countryside and no fiber, nothing like that. So that's been a bit of a challenge. So I do still hope to do that. But in the meantime, this question came up that somebody asked about, and a comment about riding in a balance saddle. And this particular person had said that she's had her saddle for quite a long time, but she's still, when she's finished riding, she still feels quite stiff because it's so wide. And I thought that was a really useful topic to discuss, because it is an issue. And another thing that I'm in the process of doing is working with my Feldenkrais teacher, Frenny Booth, who's been a great help to balance over the years. And Cara and I spent huge amounts of time with Frenny, learning from her. And I want to sort of get her involved again and probably do some more workshops in 2022. I haven't done one for a long, long time, but I think the time is getting close to revisiting that. But in the meantime, I was talking to her about this issue, and we were having this conversation, and it was interesting because when you think about what the reasons that saddles had become so narrow over the years. When balance started in '93, and of course Carol and I had been doing quite a bit of research before balance was formed, so we've been working on this saddle issue for a while, sort of in the background, looking at how saddles have become so narrow and so different to the shape of a healthy horse. It's like, oh, how on earth did they get like that? But of course, I think a lot of it, and you can still see it now, is that when you look at the shape of a horse that is in good health and well muscled, it is a very, it's a big animal. It's a wide animal, and its back should be broad, fairly flat, and wide. And of course, human beings find that shape a bit of a challenge to sit astride for length of time. And it's more so when the rider is not very fit, doesn't ride very often, leads a sedentary lifestyle outside of riding. And you can see then why saddles and saddle makers sort of fell into the trap of trying to accommodate the rider's need or desire for not being challenged by sitting on astride a horse, by making the trees and the saddles as narrow as possible for the rider, without, and of course, again, so many saddle makers for years and years knew nothing, didn't seem to think they needed to know about horses. They were just manufacturing products, sometimes very beautifully, but nevertheless turning them into sort of items of torture for the horses who had to wear them. And you can see why this happened, because the riders didn't like the feel of a saddle that was the same shape as the horse they were sitting on. And the same problems apply now. And as Vrenny actually said to me, it's so unfair that horses have been expected and to suffer just because human beings have forgotten how to use their bodies in a way that accommodates. So, yeah, and there's no doubt about it, there are a lot more wider saddles on the market than there used to be when Balance started. This, it's a given, which is great. And, there's a definite improvement in that respect. However, you don't have to go very far in tack rooms and saddle manufacturers, showrooms and stuff to see saddles that are still horribly narrow and angular. And presumably because the horses that these things are being fitted on are horribly narrow and angular, not because they should be that shape, but because they have ended up that shape, with whatever disabilities go along with that. One of the things that's of interest to me is how, whereabouts this idea that dressage saddles had to be these sort of long, straight shapes where the riders were expected to ride with a very long leg position. So the upper thigh and the thigh was sort of almost perpendicular to the ground. That's sort of become a bit of a fashionable thing and an expected thing in dressage. But in reality, what I see is so often horses being ridden much more effectively and better, moving better, going better, when their riders are in a sort of general purpose shaped saddle or a jump saddle even, than in the equivalent dressage saddle. Because, well, there's multiple reasons. But again, it's one of the problems we see a lot, and it's, if you'll notice that Balance, if you look at our dressage saddles, you won't see one that is dead straight cut. You won't see any that really encourage that very long, straight leg position, because the rider's body is not, a human body, I should say, is not designed in such a way that it makes it easy to open the hips and the legs wide enough to sit around the horse comfortably and go straight down at the same time. If you've got more bend and more angle in the hip joint and the knee joint, it's much easier. And when you see somebody sit on a horse bareback, so no saddle at all, they tend to automatically sit with the knees a little higher, legs a little more open, and they don't sit with their legs straight down because it's uncomfortable. They don't, because they're actually feeling the natural width of the horse. They only do that when they're put on a saddle that allows for that by being narrower than the horse's body shape. So it's an interesting conundrum. One of the things that Vrenny and I are hoping to do, and we've already had a little session and discussed it, is to look at how to help people remember or learn how to do sort of basic squatting movement, so that, which helps the whole thing about opening the hip joints and the allowing the knees to separate and to allow all the joints to close in. And it's a movement that we don't have need to do very often, because we're sitting on sofas, we're sitting on chairs a lot. So that movement, that organization is missing. But be able to remember, allow the central nervous system a way of remembering how to do it, would be a really good thing for most riders to be able to do, so that they can more easily sit astride the width and the shape of a moving horse. I think, some people would choose to do and will do yoga and things like that to sort of keep the body open to movements and postures that we don't need to in our daily life. So yeah, we'll sort of ponder more on this, but this is just a sort of little intro, just to say that I haven't forgotten that I've suggested about doing these videos, and that is still on the cards. At the moment, you've just got to put up with me blabbering on. But I'd quite appreciate your feedback anyway, those of you that bother to watch the video, about this conundrum, about getting riders, making it easier for riders to sit on saddles that are an appropriate shape and width for the horse. So the horse isn't the one that has to compromise its comfort in order to accommodate riders who are not used to riding in that position and don't want to get used to it. So it's a little something to be going on with. So we'll do some more about this. I'll enlist Brenny's help and do some work and a little video to try and go with that and talk a bit more about it. Anybody got any other ideas or suggestions about what they've done? It'd be great to hear your feedback. Okay, that will do for now. Over and out.